Okay. So it was basically a really good quote that I've actually learned, and it's actually based upon my own experience because of the amount of sacrifices that I've made so far in life. Is that the greater the sacrifice, the greater the glory, even if it doesn't seem that notable. And I start to understand how much I've sacrificed in many other various forms of how I lost so many things, and I often realize that there's some really good things that actually came in return. It's basically like where effort basically meets resistance, right? So you work as hard as fuck as you can until you actually try to achieve the goal, but like there's some big huge bottleneck that's actually holding you back as of this given moment. And I've had this situation whenever I sacrifice a lot of good things, right? I've sacrificed friends, I sacrificed social media, I sacrificed a bunch of other stuff, even sacrifice other things, maybe even spending time with family, maybe with friends, etc., right? And I think with that sacrifice, I think I still wanted this to this day, like what are some good things that actually came right now in return, right? If you aren't even doing anything, right? If you're being consistent and doing the thing that you're actually doing, then there's basically something wrong with you, right? You probably need to spend some time learning and reading and then meditating and trying to actually develop your own habits, right? Because there's a huge understanding, right, that when you're basically trying to improve yourself, you're basically trying to improve in any sort of field or in mastery in a discipline or field, or maybe even in your business, there has to be other things that actually become the byproduct of your success, right? It all comes down to meditation, reading, going to the gym, like most of these basic self-improvement habits. Those are the biggest things that really, stack up to your success. You basically improve like all other aspects of your life, right? Because the thing is, there's really no such thing as a business problem. Like you're not really having this problem with your business. It's not the problem. It's not the problem that you basically have into your business. Is that you basically have a personal problem, and the personal problem is basically you being the problem of not doing the thing, right? And with you not ever doing the thing, it all comes down to your health, it all comes down to your relationships, it all comes down to how you actually manage yourself and how you actually are willing to have this entire like discipline and willpower, right? And I've started to realize that most of the sacrifices that I've made, I think it really paid off the most. I think during most of my time around this whole monk mode period in this solitude season, it's given me a huge understanding that it is kind of like a huge amount of boredom. I think boredom is a really good skill to have, and I think in order to be successful, you have to actually get bored at something, right? I often kind of start to realize that you kind of need to get boredom, and I think boredom is the byproduct of actually trying to get the success that you actually want to achieve, right? Because I think back like when I around like my first year of high school, I remember like I even deleted my Xbox account because I did something stupid, right? I actually did something illegal, right? Because I actually wanted to like grab someone's IP or some shit like that. And during that time, after I deleted my Xbox account, I had nothing else to do. I basically lost all my progress in all the video games that I literally played. I lost all my progress in Halo. I lost all my progress in Destiny. I lost all my progress in most of the other games that I have on my Xbox, right? And I'm starting to realize that when you actually delete like when you lose so many things, right? When you lose so many things and you basically sacrifice these things, you start to get bored. You start to kind of lose this momentum, and basically your dopamine levels kind of go way below the baseline, right? And you kind of fall into the habit of getting bored all the time, and that your life is so boring. But it's okay, because later on in the next few months or the next few weeks, good things will actually happen. And it's not just like, oh yeah, good things will happen all the time. No. What really makes good things happen is when you're actually doing the work, and when you're doing something that's more challenging. I think that's what's actually meant to be the most memorable thing in our lives, right? It mostly comes down to the stage of suffering, right? Because I started realizing, like, looking back in the olden days, especially like in my past when I used to do sports, when I used to, work on my YouTube channel, when I started to compete, right? It gave me huge understanding. Like the best moments are the moments where I've suffered a lot. The best moments are the moments where I've been through so much pain and agony, rather than the best moments I've had, rather than like the happy moments that I've had. And yeah, I think it's always nice to have happy moments, but the best moments and the most memorable moments are the things that really made us feel vulnerable in the long run. It's like how we grow. I always looking back, like every time back in my childhood years, I've been lonely and I've been depressed and I always felt like really suicidal. And I think I can actually think of these moments where it's really led me to where I am today. And I'm just grateful for the things that I've always went through, because I think without it, I probably wouldn't be here, right? I probably wouldn't be making this video. And I think that during those moments, it gave me huge understanding to, like, that is the byproduct of the success, and especially the sacrifices of even losing my friends and like abandoning my like loser friends. It gave me huge understanding to have other things to just replace into my life, and I think boredom has been a really good skill. It's very valuable, and it's always really good to have, especially when you just lose this sense of purpose, when you lose this sense of meaning in life. If you ever felt like you have this lack of direction, if you ever felt purpose, then just go sit in your room and just stare at a wall for fucking hours. You just bring a journal with you and a pen and just write down your thoughts. That's the only thing. If you're actually willing to do these things, if you're actually willing to find any sort of meaning in life, it's actually just by staring at a wall for a few hours and just journal your thoughts. Maybe don't go to school, maybe don't go to work, and just write down your thoughts. Maybe write down your feelings and what you feel, and maybe at some point you already know what you're doing in life. And it's always okay, because I think this basically resets your dopamine receptors. And when your dopamine receptors are fired up because of video games, junk food, because of any other thing, all the way below the baseline, and then later on good things will always like come back and just rebound into the right places and in the right direction. I've been in a huge massive boredom when it comes to taking a step back from video games, because I went through this huge dopamine detox with video games. And with this huge dopamine detox in video games, I've took a step back from video games for like around the whole month of October and the whole month of November. I haven't even touched a single raid. I've never touched a single. And I mean, well, I have, but it's just like I haven't really like gotten addicted to it, right? And what I've realized is that I kind of lost this huge addiction to it. And it all comes down like maybe even uninstalling the games as well. And it gave me a huge understanding, especially the things that I've basically lost, whether if it's my Snapchat account. That was my biggest drive, because I lost so many things. I lost so many friends. I felt like so lonely, right? Those are the biggest things that actually has led me to resist to bad temptations. Like there's oftentimes I still have these these cravings still to this day to just crave for video games. And I start to realize my past mistakes, and I start to realize my biggest regrets that I've had in my life, right? And also keep thinking about like a happy moment, maybe picturing a happy moment. You know, if you ever felt like you are having a hard time, or if you ever feel like you want to get into playing video games, or if you ever want to or even watch porn, or even do drugs, or maybe eat junk food, picture a happy moment. Think about a good time that you've had with your friends or with your family. And I think when you actually visualize and think about these things, they're basically moments that will actually, you know, make you want to resist these temptations, right? And I guess whenever I lost so many things, whenever I lost like, you know, my Snapchat account, where I had like a bunch of like, you know, even degenerate people, but as well I had like some really good people in my life, it kind of gave me a huge understanding like to like resist it, because I know that I lost something, and now when I lose something, I know something good is actually going to come to return. I remember the same applies when I deleted my Xbox account. Like there were literally good things that came to into my return, which is, you know, getting really well in sports, even getting into grinding out on YouTube, and it is done very successfully back in 2019 and 2020. Like life has been really well, and I'm just starting just documenting my entire journey, just how tough and how, you know, strenuous this decade really is, in this year of 2024, because I'm starting to understand that the strenuous life is the best life, where I've been through this huge fucking pain. Those were the best moments I've always had. Those are the things that I think I'm meant to like thrive and enjoy more, rather than just like going to the mall and just like shopping at the mall. Because every time, you know, let's say for example, like when you actually just go out into like some nostalgic park, or like to some nostalgic mall that you went when you were a kid, it's fucking boring, right? It's literally boring. It's not that fun anymore. So that's the reason, like, yeah, I get it. Like, there's often times where I often think about my childhood and my roots of my childhood, because I think, you know, I had a really good childhood and I had a really good time, and I love those moments. But the happiness from our childhood really doesn't correlate to the happiness that it is right now. The happiness you get from a childhood and the happiness you get from right now, they're basically not the same thing. The happiness you basically get from the pain and the suffering that you went through basically is the same thing of the happiness you have right now. Like, I often think about the times where I've suffered, and I started realizing just how happy I was, like, with the results, and in the long run, I always just keep thinking these moments where I've suffered and when I've been through so much shit, and I feel so good about it, because those are the things you're gonna always remember, right? Rather than just going into some place that's just comfortable. Or, you know, when you're actually playing a video game, you want to work on the thing, right? When you're playing a video game, you literally want to explore and hunt down and gather, and to even cooperate with people, right? And even to go through obstacles and challenges. You know, obstacle is the way of success. So I started to just picture those happy moments that I've had, because every time I always go to these places, whether if it's stuff that is from my childhood, you know, whenever you go to like travel, or whenever you go to, you know, you keep traveling to the same place, or that when you're going to like a really good fancy mall or a fancy hotel or in a fancy place, yeah, it's fun. I think it's really nice. Just like, if you just keep doing it every single time, it just gets boring. And the same applies when I always keep getting on video games. Like, it's just not that fun anymore. And I start to realize that when you're being happy is basically the moments where you basically have suffered enough, and the moments where you actually are working in the thing that you're doing, that's even into this state of what's easy and as well what's hard, basically making it very challenging at the same time. And by that, it gave me a huge understanding, like, this is how you find happiness, rather than just going to somewhere that's just really easy. And because when you're solving problems, even if it's negative emotions, when you're solving problems, that is what leads to happiness. Happiness can often be the results. I know, like in James Clear's Atomic Habits, you know, he always mentions like, oh yeah, it's the systems over goals, it's a journey, not the destination. I do believe that sometimes the destination could also be happiness. And I think happiness is actually what leads. It can often be the results. And maybe there's going to be points you have to resist. You have to, like, it'll probably restrict your happiness, but in the long run, when you actually do the thing, end up becoming happy in the long run. And that's why I kind of disagree with what they say. Oh yeah, it's a destination, not a journey. Because sometimes what really makes us happy is when we do obstacles, when we actually overcome these obstacles, whether it's trying to cold approach like a hot girl, or when it comes to even competing in a really like strenuous sport that you actually want to be in. Like, that's literally the funnest thing to do, right? And it's scary, right? But what's really interesting is that dopamine, right, is actually equivalent. It's basically motivation, right? But most of your dopamine basically goes high when it comes to pain and pleasure, right? And if you actually do something that's really painful, like if you do something that scares you every single day, your dopamine actually goes up with more pain, more dopamine, and more dopamine, more motivation, right? And that gives me a huge understanding, like when you actually make courage a habit, right? You have to do something that even scares you every day, or do something that's challenging every single day, and later on good things will actually come to your favor, right? So that's one of the things that I've learned through my own experience when I do all of the strenuous bullshit stuff. When it comes to speaking in front of camera, when it comes to talking to people, when it comes to, going out and into the wilderness, maybe speaking on camera, maybe talking to a bunch of really good people, and starting to even show up and even start to upload videos every now and then, because a lot of people are actually pretty scared to start uploading videos on YouTube, but you just have to do it anyways, right? You just have to fucking do it, and then later on you can actually start learning what you should do or shouldn't do, and just do what you got to do, man. Just do what you got to do, and the more you sacrifice, the more fortune will come to your favor. Fortune favors the brave, fortune favors the bold, and good things will come to your favor when you take big risks. I've always sacrificed a lot, and I think now, even though it doesn't seem so notable, but now I just feel really grateful for all the sacrifices that I've made, even though there's oftentimes I feel a little bit of regret, but at the same time I'm kind of grateful, because now I'm now starting to just resist the really bad habits. I remember last week I even thought about wanting to eat junk food. There's delicious cake that's so fucking good, that's Oreos and ice cream combined. It's so fucking good. For some reason I always keep picturing all the stuff that I've literally sacrificed for in order to get that result, and I often believe that with sacrificing, with losing things, is really good when it comes to achieving success. When you literally delete your Snapchat account, when you lose all your friends that maybe they may have a lot of value, but when you just lose these things, it kind of just drives you to even actually try and work as fucking hard and literally resist the bad habits 100%. That's what's making me not even want to get on video games. So what's really making me not ever want to think about relapsing and getting into any sort of game on Steam, right? Because what's really interesting is that when you sacrifice something, when you lose something that's just so valuable, because I lost so many things that's just so valuable, it kind of makes me just want to work harder. It makes me want to work so hard, and it makes me just want to just keep, resisting the bad habits and not ever touch them again. I saw some things that even made me feel envious and made me feel angry, but I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm never going to wait. I'm always going to keep going every single fucking day, because that's something that I've always wanted. I have this huge big dream, and I'm doing it because I just love to just be in this place, and I just love the world and what the world really has to offer for me, and it's beautiful that way. And I think the game of life is much more valuable, and it's always going to remain evergreen than just playing in some fucking video game. And I always believe that there's gonna be a lot of good things that will always come, and that it all comes down to sacrificing, maybe even losing your friends, maybe even spending less time with your family, and maybe even not even playing video games, not ever smoking weed, not ever watching porn, not ever partying and fucking every time. It all comes to sacrifice, and it comes to the decisions you make, because at the same time, I think the more you lose something, the more chances you are able to resist the bad habits, the more chances you're able to resist these temptations that's actually coming to you. And that's what's really helped me a lot with video games, with junk food, and with most of these things. It all comes down to just resisting and thinking about the happiest moments I've had, even the moments where I've suffered a lot, because whenever I think about the moments that I've suffered, I know people always say, oh yeah, you don't seek for happiness the same way you lost it, but the moments where we lost our happiness, the moments where we suffered a lot, those are the best moments I've always had. Those are the best moments I've always had, and I'm grateful for it every single day. I always think about it every time when I'm in the car. I always just keep thinking about it every single time, and I'm just grateful for it. I'm just grateful for it. And maybe you should try this as well. Maybe just think about these moments where you've lost your happiness, and later on when you achieve the success, when you've been through this huge pain and discomfort, and you ended up with the result, and once you get the result, you end up being happy. I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, it's process focused on, shut the fuck up, right? But just that kind of gives a huge understanding of how happiness really is, because sometimes, as Mark Manson says in the book The Subtle Art About Giving a Fuck, right, that happiness is actually found when you solve problems, and I think that's the only route, and it has to come through more pain and maybe even abandonment, sacrifice, and suffering. And I think it's very valuable to have, because without any sort of suffering, you're not going to be able to grow, and without any sort of people hating on you, then you're not going to succeed. If people don't hate you, then you're doing something wrong. And it's always okay if people hate you. A lot of people hate me. A lot of people hated me in school. A lot of people think I'm stupid and all that stuff, but that's okay. I'm fine with that, and that's on them. That's not my problem, right? And you should do the same as well. If people just think you're stupid, hearted, or any of that shit, or that you're then that's on them. That's not on you. It's their problem. It's not yours. So, So it's one of those big points where I often journal every single day, and really look forward to just see you guys in future ahead, and maybe in 10 years from now. I kind of just want to watch this a few times and just see this huge process of how I'm just documenting my entire journey to success at any given point, whether it's in business, whether it's in fitness, health, relationships. It's just one of those biggest points where I just want to keep documenting my life about, and it's a huge opportunity for me to just keep going and to just keep staying relentless every single day.